As I told you in the last episode of The Rebuttal, I had the opportunity to sit down with Otto the Watchdog to talk about his most recent arrest. We talked about his mission of holding government officials accountable, what's next in his pursuit of justice. I really think you guys are going to enjoy this. Let's talk about Otto the Watchdog. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Today, I am honored to be able to introduce to you Otto the Watchdog. Let's bring him in and have a chat. Otto the Watchdog, he's going to tell us all about everything about his life and why he incessantly harasses people in Texas. So, Otto the Watchdog, welcome in.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate you, man. I love your show. I've been watching you since you were just an itty bitty baby channel.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. I'm not far above an itty bitty baby channel now. So, yeah, I appreciate that, man. I really enjoy the way that you do what you do. I think it insulates you from, even though there are always going to be people who are sensitive and sort of ignore the fact that they don't have an entitlement to control your speech based on how they feel. There are always going to be those people, but I think that there's probably less people who can get mad at you because of the way that you deliver and the sort of comedic approach that you take to this. What was the thing that makes you do it that way as opposed to some of the ways that other people do it?
Well, I certainly hope that more people think it's funny than are angered by what I do. I don't think anybody should be upset by what I'm doing. I always thought that if I saw myself on the side of the road, I'd think it was funny. And I'm just a happy guy. I like telling jokes. I like making people laugh. I'm a prankster in my everyday life. I like to joke around. So I don't see why I would change who I am for the street performance on the side of the road, you know. And it is a street performance. This is I've been at this for about 10 years, and it's evolved over time into what it is today. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from other activists, obviously Jeff Gray and his cool, calm cucumber self, and Eric Brandt and his outlandish, in your face and confrontational style, and there's so many people but this is just, it's just recording what would happen anyway. And then sharing that with others so that they can enjoy it or, get bent if they want to. If they want to get bent out of shape, they can.
Yeah, I've always I just don't see things the same way that other people do. I sort of enjoy and appreciate the human experience and watching people and sort of seeing how they interact with each other. And I never really quite understood why people get so bent out of shape over words and ideas that it's almost like they're threatened by the idea that you're going to force them to think about things in a way that they hadn't considered before,
For sure. I don't know why people would be upset when they're just driving by and seeing something, or like those brief moments. I mean, your day is long and we're all in a hurry. I mean, you're only a stoplight is only 3 minutes. So if you can't be uncomfortable for 3 minutes out of your day, and from a lot of people, they will never drive past Otto the Watchdog again. That might be, it might literally be a once in a lifetime experience for a lot of these people.
Yeah. If they ever see you,
if they ever see me at all. Yeah. To begin with, I do focus on a lot of smaller towns primarily because they don't really have a good news outlet. The things that happen in there are, even if it would happen in a big city, would be major news, because it doesn't affect a lot of like numerically, a lot of people. It doesn't get the attention that I think these things deserve. And, I think that those small towns are important to the fabric of America. And if we let these small towns get away with, all the things that happen just everywhere. So we can't let those happen in small towns, just like we don't like them happening in big towns.
But what's funny is because, I can't live my life and get through a traffic light without the asshole in front of me being on their phone 10 seconds after the light changes. So how do they even notice you? Like, why can't they just be distracted by their phones like everybody else? I don't understand.
Yeah, keep scrolling to your next Facebook, TikTok, or whatever it is, We all control ourselves when we get that little bit of road rage when somebody else is doing something, that's out there. Why would it be any different if they were on the sidewalk and not in the car beside you? Yeah, so I don't understand why it's very rare that there's some sort of altercation with citizens. That's
Yeah.
so incredibly rare, but those get a lot of views. So
Yeah, and I think that there's a sociological phenomenon going on here as far as we have allowed people to believe that, and the reason is because we watch cops every day enforce their own feelings. So it's not that far divorced. And it's sort of like the chicken and the egg argument. Did it start with sensitive Karens that were weaponizing the police to accomplish their own aims towards their insecurities, or was it cops first? Who knows? But the point is, it's almost like nothing about the law really gets understood. It's all about who feels what and how we're going to deal with this squeaky wheel that's causing me problems, as opposed to what's right, wrong, legal, otherwise.
Yeah, as an example of that, at the tail end of my recent arrest video. But if you look at the very end of that, you'll see a section where the neighborhood posse came up to assist Officer Wind, and they're spouting out all the reasons why I should go to jail.
And they're all based in some feeling that they have.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do, like, you offended me because you said, and the interesting thing that you do, and it is an interesting experiment. I've seen, obviously, Justin from the Random Patriot do it as well, where
Right.
you swap out the signs, and you do an excellent job of shifting between those viewpoints, because really what a lot of people don't understand is that the First Amendment does not give you a free pass to say whatever you want, whenever you want. But what the government can't do is decide that your viewpoint is not acceptable where somebody else's viewpoint is. And that's what you do a great job of highlighting, that they're abusing their power of enforcement to basically censor your viewpoint if they don't like what you have to say. And they're allowing the citizens to do that too. And you do a great job of exploring that idea. I
appreciate that. And that took a lot of contemplation on how to get that translated, into action. It's a thing. And I appreciate you for noticing that. And it is also important, the Random Patriot is the founder of that idea, at least in my, I'm sure somebody did it before, right? But he's the reason. He had a sign about cancer, and then the police, and nobody called the cops when he was out there talking trash about cancer. But within moments of flipping the sign, so that was obvious to me, and most everybody else I was watching, and that it wasn't the language, it was the viewpoint, not even so much the content. It was the viewpoint, So I wanted to use that, and also I noticed in the early days that people thought that because I was saying that some things aren't correct, some things are going not optimally, that I was criticizing the entire everything, the whole thing. I was criticizing the barrel, not just the apples, even more so, not specifically the bad apples. So I've been trying to focus it that it's not the barrel. The country itself is, we're in trouble. Everybody agrees that something isn't right. We just can't agree on what the problem is. And I'm like, hey, look, if you think that the federal government is bad, and I think most people agree with that, then we have to start looking farther down the line and find out where those people came from. And I've gotten it all the way down to towns of 150 and 250 people. And I realized that the mentality that's allowing these small town mayors and police departments to run amok and get away with anything that they want is exactly the same thing that continues to happen as they go farther up the chain. The only thing that changes is the number of zeros that's at the end of the cost for the citizens.
Yeah, and you have a unique gift in that you've managed to figure out a way to piss off 230 out of 250 people that exist in a single town.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either. I guess I just have one of those personalities, I guess.
Well, it's they can't beat you with ideas, and it comes down to, it's funny that you say that. I have this sort of thing that I think my way through every once in a while that I like to call, like, who do you think you are? Because most people, their focus is on the federal government, but the federal government has very, very little impact on your everyday life. It's actually your local government that has a lot, and the thing is, the thing that's fascinating is, and I always sort of put this in the context of, who do you think you are? Like, what do you think you believe relative to what actually impacts your life? And you'll find that the issues that cause people to vote, and I'm not going to get political, I'm just saying these are the things that people vote about. The issues that cause people to vote are not the issues that have the greatest impact on people's lives. People vote based on issues that they feel strongly about, but their lives are very rarely impacted by those things. Their lives are impacted by the cost of eggs and fuel and things like that, you know?
Right.
And it's just fascinating to people feel threatened by a challenge to critically think. And it really is scary that that's where we are in this country, but that's where we are.
Yeah, and I've noticed a lot of people make assumptions about me personally based on their assumptions of what my sign means. And my signs, they mean a lot. And it's different. Your conclusion about what I'm complaining about, it will be different than the next guy. You know what I'm complaining about to you. With you and me are having a conversation one-on-one, and the next guy, we're having a different conversation about a different subject, and the words are exactly the same, and I love that.
Well, it's funny because the lady that you talked to in that video, that back the blue sign meant to her that you were supporting her son, who was a law enforcement officer. And so it's very personal for her. Whereas the fuck the police sign might mean to you that you got the brakes beat off of you, or that you knew this gentleman who got shot and killed outside of a gas station for literally no reason,
Jonathan
personally.
Price.
Right. And that impacted you in a very personal way. And so it is interesting that we take a very personalized view of within the context of that one statement. What does that actually mean to you? That's a fascinating point.
Yeah, that's been in development for 10 years. You know, this didn't just happen overnight. So if you're a person, and I assume that you're a person that's interested in expressing your opinion, this isn't something that it just happens. You know, it starts out and you work at it and you build up until you're at a point where you know exactly what you're doing. So don't be afraid to go out there with a handmade sign and get yelled at a little bit, because it's going to be okay. It is okay if people are upset with you.
Well,
I mean, most people are going to love it.
Yes. Well, those are not the people you're going to hear from, though, right? You might get a little honk and they move on with their lives.
Yeah. They laugh, they'll take a picture and they'll share it with their friends, and then they move on.
Yeah. And so when I did, I didn't know anything about you, and I did this video that you did at the town council meeting where and honestly, your work, I think, really was a catalyst for a lot of exposure of the corruption that was happening in that town. And I think you deserve credit that you'll never get for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But when I posted that video and I did your audit of that situation, I got a lot of feedback from my audience saying, hey, Otto's been through it, man. And yeah. So tell us then, for people who don't know your story, because, you said it's going to be okay, but also it would be irresponsible to assume that it's always going to be flowers and unicorns and rainbows, right? So there's going to be a negative side of this.
Yeah, that's very true. There was a long period there that had a dark cloud. And I assume that most people don't know even a fraction of the whole story. I don't even know if I could tell the whole story. There's just so much little intricacies. So I'm going to give you a broad overview and then try and narrow down on some of the important bits. So my story in activism starts, as most good stories do, with a potato.
I love a potato. Okay,
I
let's
love
do
potato. Obviously, I am one. I'm also part potato.
Same.
So I was, man, and all these things happened real quick. So it started out, I was getting slightly upset with my local police department because I had friends that lived on the other side of the county, and because I moved, and then we were still friends, so they would come over and see me, and they would get pulled over, like, on the regular. Somebody was getting pulled over every time they came over. If there was like two or three friends, one of them would get pulled over, and it was always like license plate lights, or you bobbled the white line, we thought you were drinking, going 47 in a 45 through town, things like that. And they just want, nobody ever got a ticket. They just wanted to see if everything was okay. You know what I'm saying? You know exactly.
It was pretext. It was pretext.
Yeah,
right.
It was
who's got dope, who's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And despite the Constitution seeming like that would be a problem, the Supreme Court has said that, yeah, it's kind of okay. You can do that, whatever. Anyway, it upset me enough that I started complaining about it. And then because I was complaining about it, I started noticing that I started researching the officers that were working this area. And I noticed that they were speeding a lot and breaking a lot of rules on their own. And this is before I knew that there was a community on YouTube of people who exposed police officers for being, bad
corrupt.
guys. Yeah, that's the word. That's the C word I was looking for.
I use many C words. Not very many are acceptable, but
Yeah, that one had more letters. That one sounds right. So I was calling the sheriff and complaining about these it was sheriff's deputies in that area, and one day I called the sheriff and he goes, "Well, Mr. Knowles, what can I do for you today?" And that's when I realized, like, well, they at least know my, and it was the sheriff. Like, they transferred me to the sheriffs. They at least knew me well enough to know my name and know my number, and they probably had a little dossier on me or something like that. And that was when I first realized that I'm at least getting some attention, and I didn't like it at all. It was super scary. And so anyway, one thing led to another, and I continued to complain about the police, and then people found out that I was what I was doing about that, and they liked it a lot. And one of my friends started telling me about this other little town called Hawk Cove, Hawkcove. It's a tiny little nothing town in Texas. It's in Hunt County, right outside of Quinlan, and it is nothing. There's not a whole lot. I think there's a gas station and a liquor store in the same building. That's it. There's no stoplights. There's not even a blinking yellow light.
That's also a town hall, right? It's also a town hall.
A blinking yellow light. Yeah, it's small. But man, these cops were working it. They were like mailing people tickets and everything. And I found out that like most of the people there were at the time, and probably still are, not doing very good financially, didn't have cars and stuff. So I was trying to help out. And, they told me that one of the biggest problems for them is getting to the food bank because they didn't have cars. Oh. So I was like, well, some of them didn't have cars. So I was like, okay, well, I can at least go and pick it up for you and bring it back to you. So I was doing that. I did that for like 6 months, picking up, going and picking up their stuff and taking it to them. And then I found out that they were throwing most of the stuff. They would give us a tray, like a whole tray, like a case, I would call it, of like jalapenos or tomatoes or, cans of pumpkin and just a lot of stuff. And, they'd have to sort through it. So what I would do is I would take it home and I would divide it up so that everybody got some and get rid of all the bad stuff so that they didn't have to throw it away, and then I'd repackage it and then deliver it. And the church, I was doing that for a while, and I was getting like known for doing that. And then it started getting it grew, as things do, as good things usually do. It grew. And my church found out about it. I hadn't told anybody what I was doing. And then the church found out, and the church was like, hey, we got this 501c3 or whatever the thing is called. We can go to the Dallas Food Bank and get lots more food. And we came to the conclusion that it'd be a good thing to do. That's what we did. And then it was going fine. Okay. So I know this is a long setup, but this is important. Yeah. The church for whatever reason, they brought home a 16-foot trailer of sweet potatoes. It was potatoes. It was like a pallet of sweet potatoes, a pallet of white potatoes. These things are bagged up, and this was like getting close to Thanksgiving. So they brought all this home, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with a trailer of potatoes. So we just started giving it away, loading it up into the guys' trucks, and would go into apartment complexes and just give bags of potatoes away to as many people as we could. And I was like, I know a place where I could probably get rid of a truckload of potatoes probably like this afternoon, So they loaded me up, and I go out there, and I called the chief of police in town, because we had some, I butted heads with the chief before a couple times out there. So I called her up, and I was like, hey, I'm going to give out these potatoes. If you know anybody that needs some, send them out there, let me know, and I'll take them to them. And she was like, well, you actually can't do that because you don't have a permit, and you'll have to wait till Monday and then come into the office and apply for the permit. And I'm like, and I was already upset with this lady because all the other stuff. So I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I didn't say anything to her, but I was thinking in my head, like, I'm not waiting till Monday. I'm not keeping a truckload of potatoes in the back of my truck for several days before I try to. No, I'm not doing any of that. It's getting out of there today. And I was like, well, the system isn't going to fuck itself, right? So I pulled over at the dollar store on the way there. I got the poster and I got the markers, and I made my very first sign, right? Well, I had some other signs, but that was my first one with the F word on it. Okay. Yeah. And I thought that was the funniest thing that was the funny dude. That line right there, I just knew that was going to be the line that made me famous.
Yeah.
You know, well, I mean, not really. I just thought that it was a good line. You know, I didn't think that I was going to turn this into a freaking career. You know,
Right.
So I go out there and I'm giving away the potatoes, and I shit you not, bro. Within 15 minutes, the cop shows up. The first cop shows up, and they spent an hour and 45 minutes. They had 4 police officers there. They were all trying to figure out anything that they could. Well, the local police were trying to figure out anything they could to take me to jail. And the county was there, and they were upset that they were wasting their time. Right. So I was like, you know, it was a thing. And that was my very first video, and it went viral. And ever since then, that's what I've been doing. So that's
did
how
you
I
ultimately
got
get
started.
arrested during that?
No. I that's a misconception. I actually did not get arrested for the potatoes, but I did get arrested the very next day. The very next day, I went out and I held that same sign, and I made a new sign that said "shit is fucked up" and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Profound.
Right. I was like, man, this shit is fucked up. You know, it was hilarious. So I made that sign, and I went out the very next day into a neighboring town, trying to bring awareness, trying to get exposure for the video that I had made the previous day, because nobody was going to find out about it in a town of 500 people, you know? So I was trying to get pressure, and I did. And I was out there for less than 15 minutes. It was less than the day before. And the first cop showed up, and then right after that, 2 more showed up, and I was in jail. I mean, lickety split. You couldn't even go through a drive-through as fast as they took me to jail. And that was the one where the famous Otto flop. I had decided that if I was going to be put into cuffs, I was going to flop on the ground, and that's what I did. And they charged me with resisting arrest, interference, and disorderly conduct. And I shit my pants, bro. I thought I was going to prison, but actually, the saving grace on that particular case was the higher charges. So if they had just charged me with disorderly conduct, I wouldn't have gotten an attorney, because I couldn't afford one.
Right. So and you weren't subject to jail because it was if it was a Class C misdemeanor disorderly conduct, you don't get an attorney. Right.
So I was actually saved on that case because I had a court-appointed attorney that started out, and he was garbage. He didn't do anything, but at least I had somebody there. Because if it was up to me, man, I did not know. I mean, I kind of knew free speech and some of the case laws revolved around that, because I thought that would be the thing that I'd get in trouble for is the words. So I wanted to make sure that I was on solid legal footing and things like that before I ever went out. And, you know,
there are times the First Amendment does not give you the right to say whatever you want, whenever you. All I'm saying is that, you know, think whatever you want to think. But interestingly, in Texas, I believe that in order to be convicted of resisting, you actually have to use force against the police officer, which is the same as it is in Tennessee. And that can't just be flopping on the ground. There has to be an application of physical force in order to get a conviction for resisting.
That's my understanding as well. Thankfully, I've never had to pursue a defense for that. And I have absolutely zero intention of ever having to find out whether or not flopping on the ground is resistance. But it's in my opinion, I think you're right. I don't think that you can resist by not doing anything. It has to be intentional use of force.
Florida has that resisting without violence statute, and that's a bitch, because
resisting without violence, that's the thing.
They arrest Jeff for that all the time. He never gets convicted of it, because the one kicker, or I would say the caveat in Florida law, is that the underlying thing that you're arresting him for has to be lawful, and most generally it's not. Right. So that's the reason those never stick, is because the underlying offense, you can't resist an unlawful arrest without violence and be convicted of that. There has to be lawfulness as a predicate. And I think that's the reason that's always Jeff's saving grace, is that they're always arresting for something that isn't a crime anyway. Same with you, probably.
Well, I mean, thankfully, I would agree with that. I haven't broken the law. So I've been arrested a lot. I mean,
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
You know, I was watching Jeff the other day. I think he said he was arrested 14 times or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know exactly how many times I've taken the ride. I think we're probably close, probably at least 10 and maybe less than 20. So somewhere around in there.
What would you say it's cost you out of pocket in all those times?
Oh, bro, cash wise,
Yeah, just bonds and all that. Yeah.
I mean, at one time I had a $65,000 bond, and we had to pay it in cash because all the bondsmen in town hated me because of what I was saying about the sheriff. So
Isn't that how funny how that works? How the guys that get you out of jail have to be in bed with the sheriff.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's 6 bond companies in Rockwall County, and they're owned by 3 people. So I think one of them, one person only owns one, and then the other 2 own the other 4.
You know what we could do, Otto, is we could really, really piss in their Cheerios by starting a GoFundMe and raise money for you to start a bonding company.
That would be something, wouldn't it? Oh, man,
Otto the bondsman.
Otto's bail bonds.
Oh God, wouldn't that make them mad?
Oh, that'd be terrible. I wonder if I could get a national license, and that'd be fun.
I think it's state to state, but it's it's an interesting. All parts of our criminal justice system are incestuous like that. People just don't realize it. Well, I know that this situation in Wynn that you most recently got arrested for. The thing that I will remember it by is maybe. It probably has the Guinness Book of World Record for the longest lasting low speed pursuit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I got such a kick out of watching that dipshit chase you around the block. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, are you? Oh, this one? Am I under arrest right now? I do. I think it's hilarious. Am I being detained or arrested? Do what? Are you out of breath already? You're gonna see a police officer lose his qualified immunity. He's already threatened to arrest a man for his free speech on the fucking sidewalk. Hey, eat my ass. I am in public. That's exactly what I'm doing it right here. What did you want me to do it? Do you want me to go home? And do it in the closet? Oh, I don't give a shit what you want. I want it here. It is too. It's my town. That guy right there, he's trying to arrest me for my speech. Not on my watch, sir. Yay, fuck the police. He's jaywalking. Breaking the law! He's breaking the law! He's violating the law!
Identify yourself.
Oh, fuck you! I'm not telling you shit! I'm not identifying nothing! I'm not identifying shit! I'm not! Am I being detained or am I free to go?
You're being detained now.
Oh, right now? Right this second? Is that a lawful order?
Yes, it is. Step to the curb.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me. I don't consent to any searches or seizures. Fuck you.
Your ID?
Nope.
I'm not going to ask you again, sir. Your ID, please, now.
No. No ID for you, Sergeant.
Okay.
Weend.
That's fine.
No ID for you, Weend.
That's fine. You violated the law today.
Did I? Did I?
Yeah.
Put me, then arrest me.
I wouldn't arrest you.
All right. Well, either arrest me or let me go.
No, I'm going to arrest you.
Okay. Put me in cuffs then.
I wouldn't put you in cuffs.
Am I being detained right now?
Yes, you are.
For what?
For disorderly conduct.
Disorderly conduct. What disorderly conduct?
Because your signs are offensive.
And my signs are offensive? Which signs exactly?
That one right there.
This one? Fantastic. What does this sign say? Is that on? Is that body cam on?
This body cam's on. You bet.
How about this one?
You're fine. No, you're fine.
I can't believe it. That wasn't the first time that officers followed me around the corner, but that was by far the most entertaining. It was because he got to that first corner and I went back and he was like, you know what? I looked back at him and I was like, this guy is done. Like, he's already gassed out. And I thought that's funny because look at me. I mean, I am not a track star by any means.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of my point, right? So, that whole thing is not by accident. He's a 42-year veteran of law enforcement. He's old as shit, obviously. I don't know how old he is or anything like that, but
we got to be 18, so he's at least 60, right? So
at least 60,
Yeah.
And at that point, maybe patrol duty's not for you, buddy. And that's not saying that, once you get a certain age, you're useless, but you're obviously not as good at 60 as you were at 18. Maybe it's time to start filling out some paperwork or something, but I wouldn't even trust this guy for that.
Well, the thing is that these guys, they're like lifetime patrolmen because they're not smart enough to pass the civil service test to get promoted. If you get a guy that's in patrol after 42 years in law enforcement, one of two things is true. He's not smart enough to advance, or your department is so small that all you have is patrol. I mean, that's it,
Right. And he has been, he started out in Garland, which is a fairly good sized town that grew. And then since then, he's been moving to smaller and smaller departments and spending less and less time at each one that he bounces around from,
Well, and you got a guy that started at 42 years ago. You're talking about the Smith & Wesson 686 revolver eras with no security holster. Like, you're talking about guys that the whole mentality of policing was completely different. It's impossible to get those guys to adjust to modern policing. And the worst part about this whole situation is there's literally nothing you could do to the guy. You're not going to get him charged in red state Texas with a crime by anybody there. And then the other thing is, the second that you do anything to him, sue him or get him to where he's going to get fired, he's just going to retire. I mean, hell, he's only got a couple of years before post is going to make him retire anyway, because you actually can't serve after a certain period of time in most states. So,
well, as soon as he is forced to retire, then he will begin peddling his services as an expert.
I'm sure.
Which, I have depositions on my channel of master law enforcement officers who got timed out, and now they're selling themselves as experts. And upon reviewing their expert testimonies, it makes me lose faith in law enforcement.
Yeah,
these guys repeatedly,
that's a racket.
Yeah, they repeatedly make inaccurate statements that are provably false with a simple Google search. And I don't know how to help that. If you're not,
you can't, because it's their expert opinion, meaning it's based on their training experience, whatever. So it's and their only function is just to, if you get to a situation where you have to go to trial, to sort of have a battle with the experts and have somebody. But the whole point, the whole game, Otto, is that you're going to tell a story to the jury as the prosecutor, and you're going to say, this happened, and you can't, as the lawyer's testimony, the lawyer's arguments are not evidence. And so you have to put a witness on in order to give evidence to the jury. And so the whole point of that whole game is to say, this person is an expert in this field. And it's a way to it's a narrator for the story you want to tell. Right. And so the whole point is that you can't say it as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney and it be evidence that the jury can consider. So you have to have a proxy there to tell the story. And so if they're going to have their expert telling a story, well, then you have to have your expert telling a story, and then you let the jury decide who's more credible. It doesn't really matter what they know. It's just the game we play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And thankfully we have cameras and YouTube, and we're able to, James Freeman was not able to record a deposition, notably recently.
Yeah.
But other than that one, generally we're allowed to, request to record it, and, we can get those recordings and put those online for everybody to see exactly how stupid these people are.
Well, and again, just like you couldn't hand out food because they would have never told the Salvation Army or the Red Cross that they couldn't hand out whatever they wanted to. You couldn't do it because of who you were. Then that's the same thing that happened to James Springer, is that he couldn't do it because of who he was. They knew who he was. They didn't like him. They didn't like what he had to say about
Targeted
him.
retaliation.
So, exactly. That's 100% what it was.
Yep. And it's becoming easier to prove those things also, before the prevalence of cameras, and now most of our activist guys are wearing multiple cameras, because we don't trust anything, and it's becoming easier to prove that kind of stuff. But man, I can only imagine that gives me even more respect for the sheer magnitude of the balls on people like Rosa Parks.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
There was a good chance she was going to die for that. You know what I mean? A good chance.
Or something. Something bad was likely to happen. And back in the day, they used to have training classes for something called legal observers. And that's basically a professional witness, somebody that's trained to be a good witness, because they did not have the ability to record these things. Yep. And man, if we had recordings, but also because the prevalence of recordings, now we're in a situation where people, like right now, we're going through it right now, this time frame in American history, where people can watch a video, the same video, and have vastly different opinions of what they just watched. And,
you learn that day one of law school, and the idea is that reasonable minds can differ. Now, I'm not saying that, somebody else's interpretation of the same thing is necessarily reasonable, but the point is, that's a thing, especially when and it really comes down to what you have when you have seriously gray and not black and white, like nuanced things. People and their emotional nomenclature and their post-traumatic stress and all of their life experiences are going to shape them to look at things differently. I was having lunch with a buddy of mine who's a judge a couple days ago, and he was like, every single person that's in my courtroom, and he's like, I don't know if you see it really outside of the context of criminal law, but every single person that's in my courtroom made decisions that at some point in their life, that decision made sense to them as to what, and it's just so fascinating how we arrive at what seems right or wrong, or how we arrive at the calculus to make a decision, and how it varies over the course of different people or whatever. It's very fascinating from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, and it changes from over time as well.
That's the thing about when you think about the statement, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything, like that shit meant something to people like Rosa Parks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was a serious decision that had to be made as to whether or not her safety and security was important enough to sit down on this principle, literally sit down on this principle. And she wasn't going to do it. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah. Oh boy, whether or not your safety and security is at risk, that's something I have to measure every single time I go out.
What are the status of the charges right now? Are they still pending?
In Wolf City? Yeah, they're still pending. I was supposed to have a court date last week that suddenly got canceled. We're rescheduled for mid-October, October 16th, I think it is, at, I want to say 1. I don't know, sometime like that. I don't think I'm even going to be there.
Okay.
Because I do have an attorney. I do have an attorney on this one, a paid attorney. So my first lawsuits, I did pro se. Honestly, because I couldn't find an attorney in Texas who had the gonads to take my case. And man, that was rough, because they were hitting me hard, and not just on I thought that what I was doing is making a stance for free speech, and then I needed to know my First Amendment protections, and that I would go into court and I'd be like, hey, Mr. Judge, this is free speech. And he'd be, oh yeah, obviously this is free speech,
Clunk.
And that's not what happened.
See you later.
All. That's not what happened at all. I would be like, yeah, Judge, this is bullshit. And he would look over the prosecutor. He's like, you going to let it go? And then the prosecutor would be like, no. So my first one drug out for years, and it's never that thing that
you're expecting that there's going to be a reasonable person that as soon as they hear these facts, they're going to be like, you know what, go on enjoying your freedoms and accept the apologies of the court for wasting your time. And that's not how it works at all.
No, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
So as a result of those first cases, I made some rookie mistakes, because I was pro se and I was fighting a criminal case and a lawsuit. And I made some cases, and it cost me on the civil side of it, just because I don't, even if you know the law, you damn sure don't know the procedurals, and that's where they'll get you. Man, they got me good. So
yeah, I talked to Jeff Gray about that. He doesn't file. I thought he filed pro se lawsuits. He doesn't, and his whole reason was, I'm just afraid that one of the rules of civil procedure is going to bite me, and then I'm going to waste all this time and probably have to eat their attorney's fees and all that stuff. And it's like, it's not worth it.
And I have mad respect for dudes who do, but also every single attorney who I've ever spoken to would discourage anyone, even if you're a professional professor, qualified educator in your field. If you're facing charges and having to defend yourself, you're the fool. They say any attorney who represents himself as a fool for a client.
That's Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, that was?
He who represents himself as a fool for a client. Yeah. Abraham Lincoln said that.
I didn't know who said it, but that's pretty. I mean, it's makes
true.
sense. Yeah, because at least, speaking as a person who's got a lot personally invested in the outcome of this case, I get emotional. I get emotionally attached, and when you are emotionally involved in something or in a heightened sense, you make mistakes.
Yeah.
You might say things. I just don't need the stress. I'm going to hire an attorney for these.
Yeah.
I got mad respect for people who can pro se all this. I am just not studious enough to keep track and know all the different things.
Well, to your point, I mean, it's not like hiring an attorney was always an option for you.
It wasn't. No. When I started out, I had a broken free cell phone from Metro PCS, and gas money was too expensive.
Yeah.
And, I'm still not, I'm not rich by any means, but at least I know where I'm going to sleep tonight. I did.
Yeah.
When I very first started, everything was fine. And then the charges started coming, and then the harassment started coming. I had code enforcement come into my house, and the tax assessor came by for the first time in 10 years. And, and then we had child protective services come by and the animal welfare people. I got a visit from, every 3-letter agency. Well, actually not the ATF, but, just about everybody else.
What's amazing is that if you dilute that down to what you were actually trying to do, you just help people without government interference. And then it became a pure protest of the government interference, and all of this sort of came as a result of that.
Yeah. And it was rough. And this was a 6-year battle. I mean, at one point I was fighting those cases, and all these people started coming by to do their little investigations, and it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. So like I said, my first video, when I think I had like 30 subscribers on my channel when my first video went viral. Thanks James Freeman. It was the first person to find my video and share it to the public.
Yeah.
So I went to bed one night with 30 subscribers. I woke up the next morning with 1,500, and it was just going crazy. And because of that, I didn't know how to handle, my information, my address and everything was out there wide open to the public. Yeah. And man, we started getting phone calls from everywhere, people call and complain, and they'll make shit up. And of course, the government investigated all of it. Yeah. Anyway, I ended up moving,
because it was against you.
Yeah, it was against me. So they investigated the shit out of that. But if I make a complaint, they're like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. So I ended up moving out of the state of Texas for a number of years to avoid that. But I still had to come back for court. Man, as long as I wasn't in Texas, it was fine. But I swear that every time I came back to Texas, I got arrested. One of them in particular, this is one of the ones that everybody knows, and it brings it up all the time. I was coming back into Texas because I had a court date, and dude, it was my last dollar. It was rough. So I came back to Texas, and I could get here, but if I bought a hotel, I wouldn't have enough gas money to get back out of Texas. So, and I have 2 kids, and I trusted the people that were around me, but I was so distraught from all the stress that I was under that I couldn't let somebody else watch my kids for a couple of days, because I was so worried that that terrible things. It was like I said, when you get emotionally involved, you make poor decisions. And as you also said, at the time, it was the right decision to make. It was the best thing that I thought I could do. So I brought my kids back with me to Texas, and I was going to go to court the next day. And we had one more night that we were going to be in a bumper pool camper. And I pulled in to a spot where I had camped as a kid. I had camped with my kids just recently. And I thought it was going to be, just an uneventful night. And I was going to go to court the next morning. And in the middle of the night, some vehicles started approaching me at what seemed like a high rate of speed. And I was like on the edge of a trail around a corner, and there was a bunch of grass there. So I was afraid they were going to come around and hit us. Mm-hmm. So I'm shining my flashlight like this, and they come around the corner, and they all stop. And it was like the first one pulled in, and then the next one pulled up. I was like, oh shit. It was like a military raid, you know what I mean? And I thought, but they were all different cars, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And I'd been driving for, stressed out and all that for months, not sleeping right. And then I've got court the next day. I'm stressed out, and it's in the middle of the night, and I've been driving for 12 hours. It's like what's going on? Anyway, so these cars ended up being cops, and not a single one of them had turned their lights on, their overhead lights, the red and blues, or anything like that. They had parked it at the end of the road for like half an hour, waiting for the guy with a rifle to show up so that they could come out there and approach me. And all of this was because some guy was riding down the trail and saw us and stopped and talked to us. And he noticed that my daughter is browner than I am. So so he told his wife, and his wife called basically the neighborhood Karens, and they all got together and started cackling and was like, well, he's probably out there sex trafficking that little girl. You know what I mean?
Gosh.
She called the cops and told the cops that, this is what's going on. So they went out there and investigate. And I ended up on an ankle monitor with a $65,000 bond and a protection order from my own children. And I couldn't see them or communicate with them for a little over 3 years.
And what was the basis of the arrest? Like, would they decided that was dependency and neglect or child abuse, or what were they?
Yeah. So it was, the charges were child endangerment, and the mechanism was the outside temperature that day. So because it was hot that day, and it was also, it was at the end of a 2-week long camping trip. So we were like, our food stores were at a minimum, our water stores were at a minimum. Not that we were out, but when you leave for a trip and you have 50 gallons of water and you're coming back and you only have 3 or 5, I mean, you're basically, I guess you're out of water, but I'm not, you're not going to die from that, right? And it was the last day of the trip. So they assumed that we were out of water. They assumed that we were out of food. They assumed that we were there all day in the hot, and that, that these kids must be in imminent peril of their life, So they took them, and they took me, and I went to jail, and I didn't get to see them kids. Well, actually, I did get to see them for a while until we went back to court and they imposed the new bond restriction.
So is all that, how long ago has that been over with now?
Couple of years. I think that ended 23. So I guess it ended in 2023. It's been over for a couple of years now, and I got my kids back.
Yeah,
I don't have any convictions.
And that's the thing I always say to people: broken hearts create monsters. And what they've done is they did everything they possibly could to try to ruin your life. They broke your heart. They broke your children's heart, and now they have created a freaking monster in Otto the Watchdog.
Yeah. For sure. And I don't give a fuck, bro.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like I was reborn with a vigor, and I did not anticipate being this way, but I'm glad that, I was angry. I was very angry for quite a while. And then I was depressed for quite a while, and I was depressed and angry for quite a while. And that is not a good place to be. Yeah, for anyone. And I'm glad that I was surrounded by people, by good people. Yeah. Because if I was left to my own devices, I don't know, buddy. That was rough. It was a very rough period of time. And to quote a wise man, sometimes you can push a reasonable person to doing unreasonable things. And this was over, it started with a potato, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I can't imagine, and this is just me, I'm nobody special. I can't imagine how many other people out there are suffering the same fate, who haven't done anything but are being drugged through a system. And now they email me, and now I go and protest on their behalf so that they don't lose their kids too.
It was the Rusk County shooting with Shane Iverson. I was actually the first channel that I know of to have picked that up. And actually it was amazing. Joe Oxman, who represents the family, that was actually the first time that I saw the power that the platform of YouTube could have. Is I did that video, and like 2 days later, Timothy Randall's brother or sister, I can't remember, so forgive me if you're watching this, which one, but they said, "Thank you for sharing my brother's story." And 24 hours later, I had an email from Joe Oxman, the attorney, who wanted to discuss that case with me. And I was like, holy cow, you can talk about stuff on here and people that are involved actually see it. And now I'll just cover a story and I don't know the person, and I'll just say, hey, if you know this person, and they'll reach out to me via email and I'll have an opportunity to interview them. It's so powerful. It's such an amazing opportunity. There is such a freedom. Right. There's also a great responsibility in it, but there's a freedom in knowing that your demand is only elastic so far as the free market either does or does not support you. It's not like one person can be like, oh, let's shut him down. Independent media is a real thing, and it's very powerful.
And I think that we need some more independence, not just in the media, but all the way up and down it.
No, I agree completely. And that's the reason that, you'll see a corporate news station that has 20,000 views on a video, and you'll look at something like you put out and it's got 700,000, or something that I put out and it's got 150,000 or whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I'll have people routinely comment on my videos and say, I actually live in this town and I never heard about this.
I didn't know about that. So now that you said that, you said Shane Iverson, right? That's right here. That's not too far from me.
Yeah.
I found out about that story because you covered it.
Oh, really? You saw my video on it?
Okay. I did. Yeah, like I said, I've been following you since you were a itty bitty baby channel.
I was an itty bitty baby channel then. I had 10,000 subscribers or less.
Yeah, you didn't have a play button.
Yeah,
it was less than 20 for sure. And I was like, man, this guy is about to blow up. I knew it then, but everybody likes, I think the attorney perspective coming from a position where we think you might know a little bit.
Yeah. What's funny, because I was talking to my son. My son today's his birthday, actually. He's 26 today. And I was talking to him the other night, and we were talking about, I'm encouraging him to get into making content. He's like, Dad, he's like, you have so much to talk about. He's like, I don't have anything to talk about. He said, I'm 26. I've never done anything. And he's like, you went to the school and you did all this. And I said, well, the truth is, it really isn't about school. It's that you'll have a lot of stuff to talk about when you're 45 too, because you trade chunks of your life for it, Right. But the thing is, the opportunity might not be the same for you when you're 45, 46 years old as it is right now. So you got to figure out a way, because I think that YouTube, for people like you and people like me and people like everybody, actually, I think you could talk about your toenails and you'd find a market if you just consistently put out content. I think the opportunity is incredible for everybody on this platform, regardless of what you're talking about. I mean, I'm trying to encourage him to get into that, but you don't really think about it until somebody says, well, they try to look at the difference between what they have to talk about, what you have to talk about. And you're like, yeah, I got a lot of shit to talk about because I traded a lot of my life and mistakes and hardships for that. And maybe that is what I try to represent for people is just authenticity. I try to be the same person you'll talk to at the grocery store if we bump into each other, as you see on camera. And that's what I'm really proud about, because I'm not different in real life than I am on here,
Yeah, it's hard once you get in front of a camera to let it flow like true natural. I guess over time it gets easier, and that's probably why some of these guys get in a lot of trouble at the end of their career, doesn't it?
You get a little too comfortable, right?
They let the quiet part out.
Yeah, I
don't have a whole lot of quiet parts. I don't know if you noticed it, but I've never been accused of being a quiet person.
Well, I like that. And the thing is, man, you figured out a way to monetize obnoxious.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah,
I love that.
I know I am.
Well, that's the whole purpose of the First Amendment. We have to tolerate obnoxious viewpoints or things that we find offensive. That's the whole point. That's why we're referred to as a laboratory of democracy, because those ideas exist and create friction. And that's how we come to greatness. It's not through, I think what I think and you can't change my mind and we're not even going to discuss it, which is kind of like where we are now.
Yeah, that is where we are. It's kind of scary. If you have an opinion that's slightly outside of the norm, 10 years ago, the opinion that I'm sharing was very controversial.
Yeah.
And people would be very upset for expressing it. Anything negative towards police. In the run up and during the period of George Floyd protest, being saying something critical of local law enforcement was not a good thing. And now it's pretty common.
Yeah.
Right? Now the subject matter has shifted a little bit, and there's other things that we're not supposed to say, not even supposed to talk about,
Well, and YouTube's created that pathway, right? Because it used to be, you could not be a thing called anti-cop. Like, that wasn't acceptable to be that. Now you just get labeled as anti-cop or bootlicker, and it seems like that's bad, but it's actually an evolution in a positive direction from to your point, from what it was 10 years ago. That was even a thing that you could be acknowledged as being. You're just basically a terrorist if that's the way you feel.
Yeah, exactly. And the word was sovereign citizen being thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
I was called a sovereign citizen so much that I had to look it up and make sure I wasn't one.
Well, that's intellectually lazy police officers that want to lump anybody who has anything negative to say about the government as sovereign citizens. No, it's actually, there are people out there that just think for themselves, guy. It's not that uncommon if you just talk to people outside of the blue line bubble.
Right. And another thing they would say is that I don't feel like the law applies to me. which is exactly the opposite of my opinion.
Yes.
And that was very surprising that people were like, oh, you're just a criminal that wants to, I don't even know, you're just a criminal or whatever. And I'm like, I guarantee you that I've read more about the law than you ever have.
Yeah.
Right. Like guaranteed, I know more about what's legal and not legal than you do.
Right.
Like actually legal and not legal, not just your opinion on what people should and shouldn't do.
Well, they knew something that was more
same.
important than your legal knowledge, though, which is that, and this is true, it's still true, that they were on the right team and you're on the wrong team. And as long as that's true, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
The right side of the power is really what it's about. Because those people have the ability to impact your lives in a negative way, and that's and they'll weaponize it. We've seen it time and time again.
I certainly have, and it might be surprising for a lot of my viewers. I have friends and family who are in law enforcement. We get along just fine.
Me too.
We didn't.
Right. Well, I've had a different, these guys will call me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and ask me questions, and I answer their calls. And a lot of people would probably be surprised to learn that about me, is that I have a lot of police officers that reach out to me as a resource, and a lot of people, and they trust me because they know. And the funny thing is, the thing that happens is everybody on the left accuses me of being a Nazi, and everybody on the right accuses me of being a leftist. Yeah. That's where my buddy from Otto the Audit says, that's how you know that you're doing it right, if both sides accuse you of being the opposite, right? Because then I must be doing something right. But a lot of people wouldn't. But these guys know that I'm telling the truth and that I actually do care about steering them in the right direction. I don't think a world without police is better than what we have, but it doesn't necessarily mean that police out of control is better than what we're capable of. And we don't need that either. Like, neither of those things are good for the American population.
I agree. I think we need law enforcement. We need somebody to go out and get the bad guys, because I don't want vigilante justice and posses.
Yeah.
That's probably not a good thing. If you're doing that type of work, there should be some training and some standards. I think that's fine. It's when they start doing things that are outside of that purview that I have an issue with it.
Well, and maybe if they had just bumped into the word law at some point, maybe if they just understood, what it actually meant to be lawful, or maybe if they could have a little bit of help when it comes to the discernment of who the good guys and the bad guys actually are. That could go a long way if everybody who opposed their power wasn't just automatically considered to be Antifa or a bad guy.
Right.
That could go a long way in helping too, right?
It certainly could. The whole us versus them mentality that we really got to get away from it, because it's not us versus them. It's we got to be in this together. It's not gonna work out.
Yeah. Well, I never heard this phrase until I started a channel, but back the blue till it happens to you is a real thing.
Till it happens to you, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Man,
it is.
And I used to be that way. I remember getting in arguments. I look back, sometimes, Facebook will post your shit from 10 years ago sometimes, and it'll be like a memory. Something popped up the other day that I read, and I was mortified at what I wrote. I was like, oh my God, I'm not even the same person, because you change so much in your viewpoint after you deal with life for a little while.
Right.
And a lot of it was very pro-police. I remember getting in arguments with people about I was a bona fide bootlegger. I really was, because that's the world that I came from. And then that was the way I thought. And I just hadn't evolved in my viewpoint enough to really understand how things work. And I always cared about thinking critically. So imagine a person who doesn't even worry about thinking critically, how little they're going to evolve over the next 10 years. You know what I mean? They're only going to get more solid in their misunderstanding of how things happen and how they work.
And if nobody ever challenged you on your beliefs, then there would be no reason to wonder to think about thinking critically.
Sure. And that's what all people want is an echo chamber now. They don't.
Look, we all agree. Everybody agrees. Everybody that I know agrees with me. We all think the same. Until you see that guy holding a sign on the side of the road that says something you don't understand. And then you're like, well, what the hell is he talking about? And then, like I said, everybody that sees my signs will think of something different.
And people who consume our type of content are not insulated from that either. If you look at our comment section, people get pissed off when you go to a bank or you audit an old person's home. So there are boundaries that people arbitrarily put around the First Amendment. Even people who consider themselves First Amendment absolutists or First Amendment champions or patriots, they still get aggravated at some of the auditors. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he's doing that. So you put this artificial boundary around the First Amendment too. You're not that different than the people who are causing these problems,
There's some auditors that I don't like. And
Me
I didn't
too.
know what I still don't know what an auditor is actually. Once you get deep into the inner circle of like our YouTube activist community, we kind of have a different opinion of what auditor means as opposed to the whole.
Yeah.
For if you're really in the know, it's an audit is the people that go into the government buildings strictly to record or maybe to do some business, but that's what they do, And then for everybody else, it's like auditors or anybody with a camera that points it in the direction of a police officer.
Well, people refer to me as auditors all the time, but people refer to me as an auditor I'm actually a pundit. I'm a commenter. I'm really, I'm not an auditor at all. In fact, I would say I don't have the balls to go be an auditor. I think it's a different level of nerves that I don't have. And they might feel the same way about me talking in court. It's different for everybody. It's what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's balls or lack of brains.
Well, it's just like the whole,
you got to get fed up enough. I think that's the typical catalyst for most people is just getting fed up, and then they eventually just go do it.
Well, there's a good analysis when people talk about how you can, if you try to throw a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out.
Right.
But if you put it in there and then heat it up gradually, and that's the thing, if you can endure discomfort long enough to become comfortable, right? I mean, that's probably what happened to you. You probably never saw yourself doing this.
I never thought this was a thing.
What was your life like before? Like, what were you doing for a career, and at what point did you decide this is what I'm going to dedicate my life to?
Man, I've done some things. I ran a lawn and landscape company for 10 years right out of high school. And then I went into remodeling, and I did a lot of remodeling in the San Jose, California area, and got exposed to a different culture, a society shock that I wasn't used to coming from rural Texas, town of 250 people and, 13 people in a high school. So that was interesting. And then, I was a crew lead for the construction company. And then I moved from there and started doing technician work, repairing like lawn, like farm equipment. And then I ended up becoming a director of operations and human resources for international beverage company.
Otto the Watchdog is your HR guy. You got shit going on.
I was the HR guy. We never had to write anybody up. We had a couple of complaints, and we always worked it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's where his phrase was born. Is like somebody was in HR complaining about sexual harassment. He's like, well, shit is fucked up and stuff.
It wasn't.
What to tell you, Linda?
It wasn't sexual harassment. It was. I think the biggest one we had was off color jokes, and nobody was really offended. It was just like, you can't. This guy shouldn't be saying that kind of stuff at work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, yeah, y'all can like stay apart from each other or whatever, but I mean, are you really upset, or you just don't think you should be saying that at work? He was like, I just don't think you should say that at work. I was like, what do you want me to do? I mean, I don't know.
That was your first exposure to realize that people felt like they had an entitlement to control how somebody else thinks, right?
Yeah, I'm glad we never had any. I never had to deal with any real actual issues as HR.
That's good. It's good for the company.
I'm so glad, because I did not want that position even a little bit. They forced me into it. I think it was because of how I am.
I think that's the equivalent of one of these, maybe being in charge of the internal affairs division.
Yeah. Oh my God. So in in the flop video from back in the day, the officer who smacked the signs out of my hand and arrested me for failure to ID. So since he's failing to ID, take him to jail for disorderly conduct, is the quote from his name is Lieutenant Dial.
Wow.
He was a sergeant at the time. Now he's a lieutenant. He is literally the person in charge of receiving complaints for the Roy City Police Department. I can't make that shit up. He got a promotion to the internal affairs guy. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Yeah, and if you watch his deposition, I think the series is called A Few Bad Apples on my channel. It's depositions. It's their depositions. And Lieutenant Dial is absolutely a dummy.
Yeah.
But he's a lieutenant. He is a lieutenant.
That's unbelievable. What, so how long have you had a YouTube channel, would you say? This channel was created in 2018, like December of 2018. Okay.
And I didn't really make any for the public YouTube videos before that. You know, I made
Yeah.
some for family and friends, and some of them were funny.
Yeah.
What I started trying to do, I thought it'd be funny if I had a sign, just a little bitty sign that says "Smile, you're on YouTube," and I cut a hole in it and put a cell phone on the back of it so that I could hold it up like this and put it up against the window in my car, and they could read the sign, and I could film them as they're reading the sign, right? And then I would just like, when somebody was driving like shit, I would just pull up beside them and then put that sign in my window, which became very dangerous very quickly. So I had to stop doing that. But God, it was so much fun when somebody passes you going 20 miles over the speed limit and then makes it an immediate turn into the McDonald's parking lot so that they can wait in line. Oh man, you come by with that sign and they're just like, oh no, I got busted.
I'm surprised that you haven't been charged with obscenity by flipping that sign around backwards and using it for something else. Since you like to swap signs around, you never know what you can create.
Oh my goodness. Oh, and you know, the sign
his first convertible sign.
I can't believe how upset that we had got upset when so he was going to arrest me for the fuck bad cop sign, but he wasn't enraged until I asked him if the green sign was offensive.
Yeah, that's when he smacked it out of your hand.
You're like, ah.
Yeah,
like, get that out of here. I was like, what the hell, dude?
It's honestly amazing. So what's next for you, man? So first of all, I want everybody to go and check out Otto's channel. Obviously, I'm sure most of you know who he is if you're watching this, but please subscribe to his channel. We need to get him a silver play button. He's doing incredible work. Man,
I want one so bad. I promised my kids that I would get one.
And you're going to get one. So I hope my audience will go out and subscribe that. But what's next for Otto? What are you working on now?
Oh, look, man. You know, the signs are fun. The signs are fun, and the protests on the side of the road are fun, and that's my shtick, and I'm gonna keep doing that. But what a lot of people miss is that there's actually investigative journalism and reporting going on behind the scenes of all this. So since I'm I get a lot of reports. People send me stuff, and a lot of things come to me that the major media just aren't super interested in. And sometimes that's because the story needs to be flushed out. So what I do is I find the most intriguing tips and find a town that I'm getting a lot of tips in. And I save all this. I make a little spreadsheet, and I find the most, the juiciest target, and I start looking in those towns. In the recent few months, like you said, in Rains County, we had 2 judges arrested on charges of official oppression and witness tampering. And I don't think that story would have gotten the attention that it did if it wasn't. And I don't want to toot my horn too much, but nobody was talking about it before the Otto Dog went out there and showed his ass. So that was a thing. But since those charges have been filed, there's been some developments that I've been keeping track of. The sheriff department was ordered to seal their offices and collect everything for evidence. And when they did that, they turned over all their electronics to a private third-party company who did some sort of analysis and copying of those files with a software called Falcon, which was unauthorized. And then by the time the Marshal's Service got all those documents, the bags had been opened, and of course there was no record of any of it. So these piece of shit judges who threaten people on a regular basis and refuse to let people accept plea deals because their buddy the judge didn't get the same deal are probably going to get off on all those things, at least some of them, because the sheriff department botched their investigation so bad.
Well, yeah, and you have to wonder whether that was intentional, whether you just contaminated all the evidence intentionally so that nobody could be charged, right? You got the O.J. Simpson effect on the evidence now.
Yeah, I wish that they would do that to some of my cases, you know?
Well, the thing is, you're standing on freedom, so they actually need you to have committed a crime before they can convict you. That's a little bit different.
They work really hard to convict me of a crime and then botch this one so bad that they're probably going to get away with it. And honestly, these judges, you know, they could face jail time. Nobody expects that. Everybody's anticipating that they're going to get low probation time, maybe a couple of months of probation.
Sure.
So, I mean, they're not even really going to get punished anyway in any meaningful way. So, I mean, the cover up is worse than the crime. That pisses me off.
It's also always the case.
Yeah. Also, A story that should be a big deal that isn't. In Fort Worth, Texas, the sheriff of Tarrant County, his son, his adopted son, I should preface, was arrested for several terrible charges, including, just some terrible stuff. Adopted son of the Tarrant County sheriff.
We're talking about child victim type stuff.
Yeah, child victims.
Okay.
All right. No, nobody likes it. I don't like, whatever. He's going to have to face that.
Right.
While he was being arrested, he was like, my daddy's the sheriff. My daddy's the sheriff. My daddy's the sheriff. And he was like, take me to my daddy's jail so I don't get murdered in there and shit like that. And I was going to publish this video. They didn't want to release it to us. We fought for it really hard. We did acquire a redacted version. It took months to get this video. We are the only news network in the state, anywhere, as far as I know. As far as I know, we're the only news organization that actually got the body cam footage.
Okay.
So we posted it. And as soon as we posted it, BZ Watchdog has it on his channel. He's the one that applied for it, and he's got it on his channel. Anyway, so BZ Watchdog, he's another watchdog here in Texas. So as soon as we posted the video, the city attorney who released it gets fired. According to her, she was fired for releasing that video to us.
Not the same one that stood up for you at the council meeting, right?
The different one, one, which is amazing because, 10 years ago, I didn't trust any prosecutors because they were all out for my blood.
Yeah.
So much so that when Aaron came out and was friendly to me, I thought it was a ploy. I thought for sure. I was like, I don't trust this bitch. She's out to get me.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk to me. I didn't even want to talk to her. I was trying to run away and she wouldn't let me run away.
That's funny.
And that's good. She's no longer at Rains County either. She's moved on to, I believe, a private firm.
I think that's what you have to have. I've got a friend that I've made in the course of making these videos, and I'm trying to encourage her to do the same thing because I just don't think that it's tenable once you sort of know what the government, the back the blue till it happens to you can be extrapolated over into any sort of concept when it comes to the government. Once you pull back the curtain and you see for what it is, it's impossible to be a person of integrity, I think. I shouldn't say that. There are people who have integrity that still work for the government. That's not what I'm saying. For me, as a conscientious person, I couldn't continue. It wasn't something that I could keep doing. And I suspect that a lot of people feel that way too.
I do. I understand that. I don't want to be part of an organization that I feel is dirty and that would rub off on me. And unfortunately, that mentality means that the good people are leaving and the shit people are going to stay. And what that does is you start, because everybody starts out at the bottom. It starts out at the bottom, right? And as you build up, and then you're like, oh, this is crap, and then the good people leave, well, then the bad person takes that position, right? Yeah. And that happens until they get all the way up to the very tip top, and they become the director of the FBI, allegedly.
Well, and that's the other thing about doing this versus doing something like that, right, is that you're actually, Otto, there's no other Otto. You're irreplaceable. And it's the only thing.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Well, it's true. It's the only thing that actually mimics your actual life, YouTube, because the thing is, and I realized this, I was an assistant district attorney, and we went to the annual conference, and there was this lady, her name was Kim Helper, and she was like a Nashville, Tennessee area district attorney, so a large city, and she was doing incredible work, and I was at the conference, and I realized that they were showing her stuff as a memorial to her. She had died like 10 months earlier, and I never knew. And I worked in the same field as her, in the same state as her. My boss was one of 32 colleagues. There's only 32 elected district attorneys in the state of Tennessee. And my boss was one of them. And the people in our office did not know that this lady had died. And it was like in that moment, I was like, your life doesn't actually matter to anybody outside of like 5 people. The second that, to your point, they've got to have warm bodies to fill those roles, regardless of how good or bad they are, right? Yep. And so the second that you leave your job, all of the virtue that you take with you doesn't necessarily stay because you took it with you. So whoever's filling that position. But the point is, you're replaceable as long as you're an employee of somebody else. You're irreplaceable as your children's father. You're irreplaceable as Otto the Watchdog on YouTube. This is where you matter the most. and where you can have the greatest impact, which is why I do this, not because I want to be memorialized forever or that I think I'm important, but this is where if you're going to spend your time and energy doing something, you might as well have the greatest impact you possibly can. Otherwise, what's the point, right? That's how I see it.
I agree. And we are replaceable. As soon as you are not there, everybody will just wake up the next morning and go to work.
Yep, exactly. They'll replace you. They'll have an HR post for you. Unless Otto's the HR director.
Unless I'm the HR guy.
Might take a couple weeks, you know what I mean? But
hey, I don't know. I'll get to it funny, will
man.
Be filled.
Well, brother, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. I definitely want to get an update whenever this stuff ends, but it won't be your last time arrested because you're pissing in the Cheerios of the powerful.
I think that's an accurate statement, buddy.
But I'm excited to see, man. I want to say one of the tragedies, I think, of your work, and it's not you, is that it's so funny and it's intentionally performative in an obnoxious way that people think that that's who you are instead of that it's a performance. And I think that that's tragic because what you're actually doing is taking the temperature of how much these people are using their brains when they try to decide that this sign is offensive. There's an actual social experiment going on that is lost in the sort of comedy of it. And I think that's tragic. It's not lost on me. I realize what you're doing.
Appreciate you, buddy.
And you're very funny and very smart. And I wish you nothing but the best and success. And we're going to get that silver play button.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you so much. And I apologize for not taking your advice. I don't keep my evidence to myself. I mean, I live streamed it the first time, so I guess it doesn't hurt any good to do it again.
Well, I'll just tell you like I tell my children. If you don't take my advice, you're the one that's going to pay for it, not me.
I mean, it is what it is. At the very least, I want everybody to know what's going on, and you can make your own decisions.
Sure.
Don't take my word for it. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm just a dude, I don't know anything more than anybody else does, and everybody's got to make their own path in this world. So,
yeah. Well, buddy, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, and we'll get this video up and posted, and hopefully you'll get some subs from it. And if not, I mean, hell, probably more people watch your channel than mine, but either way, hopefully it will enrich you in some way and you'll get some positive feedback from it. But I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey man, I'm just thankful to have a conversation with you.
I appreciate it, man. In closing, I just want to say thanks again to Otto the Watchdog for giving us so much of his time. And I just want to say, you guys, Otto has almost 60,000 subscribers, but he still has to work and generate income other ways. He's not making a full-time income on YouTube. And it's because creators don't get paid for subscribers. That's kind of a common misconception. YouTube pays 0 pennies for subscribers. YouTube creators get paid when people watch their content. So if you want to support these guys in a way that makes them able to fight these fights, you don't have to spend money. All you have to do is give your time. You don't even have to give your attention. All you got to do is let it play in the background and they'll get paid for it. That's how they make money. So please, I hear people in the comments all the time talking about, well, you should do this and you should do that. You should sue them. Guys, this costs money. It costs a lot of money. And not everybody that we have on this channel are people that in fact, we've only asked for you guys to contribute to one cause in the entire 18 months we've had a channel here. All I'm saying is just if there's somebody that you support or you believe in what they're trying to do, just watch their videos. Watch, share, continue to watch them over and over again, whatever you have to do. That's how you create priority in the algorithm. And that's how YouTube knows that these guys are doing the kind of work that other people want to watch. And that's how they get recommended to other people. It's how you guys took my channel from 28,000 subscribers to 130 in less than 6 months. So thank you guys for trusting me and supporting my work. I asked you to check us out on all the socials. You can find them here by scanning the QR code, and that will channel you through the corn maze that is the interwebs, and you will find your way to Linktree, where you can sign up Facebook and TikTok and Substack. If you choose to sign up for Substack, you'll have the opportunity to sign up on a paid tier if you want to. That's only for people who want to support the channel monetarily. I don't put anything on these platforms that people have to pay for. If you don't want to go to Substack or any of the other platforms, but you'd like to support monetarily, I'll leave my Venmo and PayPal links both here on the screen as well as in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.